We got to get a second number for Zoe. Hey, we're live, everybody. Hey, we're live. As you can tell, we got a phone number to call if you need to speak with a trusted adult about the events of the day. If you missed it, if you've been living under a rock for the last, 4 hours, today's the day, folks. The second of the two regulations that implement the CMMC program was released for public inspection and will officially be published in the Federal Register tomorrow. Let me double check, make sure I don't misspeak. We don't want to put out any webinar graphics with the wrong dates on them. You know what I'm saying?
Hey-o.
Hey-o, hey-o. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. Okay, so it's going to be officially published tomorrow, September 10th. First question you might be asking, what is public inspection? And why are we all talking about the rule today if it's going to be published tomorrow? Thanks to an archaic law back when dinosaurs roamed the earth and everything had to be written down on paper scrolls. The rule was that literally the day before any regulation got published in the Federal Register, a copy needed to be made available for the public to inspect. That law is still on the books. And so to this day, the Federal Register publishes the PDF copy for public inspection on the Federal Register website the day before it's officially published. What I love, I'll pull it up in a minute. What I love is on that public inspection part of the Federal Register, they say tomorrow's rules today. And it's just a leftover thing that they have to do. So we have the text of the 48 CFR CMMC final rule today. It will officially be in web form, in official, markdown language, everybody, in HTML tomorrow. It will go into effect 60 days later. As we all know, the start of CMMC Phase 1 is the effective date of the 48 CFR CMMC final rule. So starting on November 10th of 2025, 60 days from tomorrow, all new DoD solicitations and contracts will have some form of CMMC requirement in it. CMMC Level 1, CMMC Level 2 self-assessment, CMMC Level 2 certification assessment, potentially, as we talked about last week on the podcast, Daniel. Absolutely. That's the big event. Let's see. What was the math? It's been 45-something months. It's been like 3 years and some amount of time, which as we were going through that timeline, a lot of people were like, man, it's taken so long. And when you talk about it and you say it's been like 3.5 years, that's not really a lot of time if you haven't been doing anything.
Yeah.
And I already know what's going to happen is people are going to say we don't have enough time to get ready, and the DoD is going to say, "What did you do for 4 years?" Essentially. Yes. But anyways, Daniel, you and I have been on this journey together since before CMMC 2.0 was announced. How are you feeling? What do you think? What is this moment like for you today?
It is honestly so surreal. I mean, here's the thing, like you just always wonder in the back of your brain, you're like, is it going to happen? Are the critics right? Is it going to get shot down? Is Doge killing it? Biden killing it? Trump killing it? Congress killing it? Who all can kill it? Who's going to kill it? And then what do we do then? Right. But guess what? It made it through freaking to the LinkedIn comment here. It made it through Armageddon somehow. It made it through the 7, 10, 12, 50 gates of hell to get on the doorstep in a final rule. I was on the phone, and this kind of is just like the general feeling that I have. I was on the phone last week with a company that got a cease and assist internal notice from their leadership to say, do not pursue CMMC until it's final. Don't do it. We don't want you talking about it. Don't want you putting dollars behind it. It was just last week. And now the fact that we can send notification to everybody that's been doing nothing for so long.
Yep.
But here's the problem, and I'll say it, and I've said it for years. Jacob made me a beautiful LinkedIn graphic. You can be early to CMMC, you can be late, but you can't be on time. So consider this everyone's notice that they are now late.
Yep.
And the journey has to start. There's no delaying. There's nothing left. November 10th, it will be in solicitations. The provision of 7025, I think, Jacob, of notification will be in black and white text. You have it or you don't in order to receive award of the contract.
Yep.
That's it. Here we go.
Tomorrow's documents today. Everything in the regular filing as of this morning will be published in tomorrow's edition of the Federal Register. If you go to the Federal Register, you click on Public Inspection, you click on the 15 rules that will be published tomorrow. The first one is this rule, and this is the PDF copy. It's unpublished, scheduled to be published tomorrow. And when you go through here it is. This is it. 84 pages, mostly preamble. I think the actual rule text itself is only about 17 pages long. Yep. Let's see. So the actual rule starts on page 67 of the PDF, list of subjects. And then everything from here is the actual text of the regulation itself. So in the future, once this goes into effect and you Google DFAR 7021 or the new provision DFAR 7025, which makes you aware of the requirements in DFAR 7021, only the text from page 67 to 84 is what you will see. Everything from page 67 and above, all of these other pages are the preamble to the rule. My mouse isn't working. So this is stuff like public comment responses, impact estimates, summaries of what the rule is, which I always think is a waste of time. They summarize what the rule says at the top, which takes pages and pages of time. Just have people read the rule. You don't have to summarize it at all. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward. It's a fraction of the size of the 32 CFR rule that went into effect in December because it's not implementing, it's only implementing policy. It's not changing policy. It's not creating new policy. It's not adjusting DoD's overall CMMC program. It's not interpreting any technical requirements. They say that multiple times in the rule, that this only pertains to the contract clause and how to use them. Doesn't have anything to do with technical or programmatic requirements. It's just implementing the policy at 32 CFR 170. So it's quite tiny, which kind of explains, and we talked about this multiple times, kind of explains why it went so fast. It got through regulatory review in 45 days. OIRA has 90 to 120 days. Based on my understanding, this thing went over to the Office of the Federal Register like late last week, and it got put in for public inspection today, which as far as I am aware, if that's true, I don't know when it went over, but if that's true, that is the fastest turnaround time for any DoD rule that I am aware of since 2009. So, I mean, if it weren't for the election just slowing the entire process down of the entire federal government, we probably would have had this thing in the springtime. But we got it now. And and there you go. So yeah, I don't think it's really hit me yet. Because obviously it was an early morning to get started. There's a lot of breaking news. There's a lot of alerts. There's a lot of stuff. I still got to read through the rule and everything, but it's just been a crazy journey, man. I haven't really had a lot of time to reflect on it, but yeah, I would personally like to take this time to thank the haters, to thank the CMMC flat earthers, because the relentless amount of ideas that they came up with for reasons why it wasn't happening only made my understanding and ability to communicate about CMMC that much better, because they'd be like, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? Now, they weren't doing it in good faith. They weren't legitimately asking like, hey, what about this? They were like, nope, fake news. Nope, not going to happen. And so we put out tons and tons and tons of content over the years being like, the Chevron decision isn't relevant for all these reasons. I had no idea what Chevron was. I got to go off on a bunch of different learning journeys. We turned all that into content. And as a result, we gained a massive audience. We built a huge brand. We have a ton of authority and affinity in the ecosystem, and it's all thanks to the haters. So really, truly, it goes out to you guys. We would probably not be as big of a factor in the ecosystem if it weren't for the singular hatred and disdain from a small group of people in the ecosystem insisting that we were out of our minds. So I'm better because of it. Summit 7 is better because of it. The ecosystem is better because of it. So thank you to the haters. Make sure everybody says thanks. And listen, no judgment. You guys made a bet didn't turn out. Game over. Not a big deal.
Yep.
We can all move on now. We can all get back to what we were doing in 2020. We can all get back to what we were originally starting to do. So, take the day and enjoy it and all that stuff. But, we're not here to spike the football forever on everybody. We all have work to do. We all have a lot of work to do because most people didn't do anything for the last 3.5 years. So, alrighty, let's see here. Wow, lots of comments. Okay.
Yeah, a lot about, the major rule thing. A lot of people are, I think Aaron, Daniel both made comments like, is it actually going to be 60 days? Because it says it's not a major rule, I think is the note here.
Yeah. So, this is the thing, right? So major rules are required according to the Congressional Review Act to have a 60-day delay period from the time they're published until the time they go into effect. However, there's nothing that says you can't have a delay period just because it's not a major rule. And so I don't think that because the text of what they have in here is for public inspection, that is the text of what will be published, right? And so because it says insert date 60 days from publication, I don't think that they're going to pull a switcheroo on everybody and say, actually, it's going to be effective in 15 days or 30 days, or it's effective immediately. So I don't think that is going to change. Now, why do they have 60 days when they don't technically have to? Personally, I think it's just another concession that DoD has made to the industry to let them know that this is real and that you've got more time. I mean, the list of times where the DoD has been like, here's some more time, here's some more time, here's some more concessions, is just off the charts. And I think this is just one of those things, like they can have it go out to 60 days. And so they did have it go out to 60 days, which is very nice of them. Very generous. So I think that's why they did it, but I don't actually know the reason for sure. Let's see. Yeah, can it go into effect before 11/10? I mean, theoretically, they could have picked any time for it to go into effect, but I'm very confident that they're not going to deviate from what's in the public inspection document here. So let's see here. Dan's an OG. He's been here all along.
Dan.
Love to see it. Love to see it. No more faking it. Yeah. Definitely no more faking it. We're doing a webinar, everybody. We're doing a webinar. Yes. Producer Dustin is yelling in my ear. 2 weeks from now, the same week as National Cyber Summit in Huntsville, same week as Summit 7 Live in Huntsville. If you're in the area, I'll be down there hanging out with the gang at headquarters. We're going to do a webinar. It's free, covering everything you need to know about the 48 CFR rule. Obviously, we're going to be stepping through it today and sort of doing instant reaction to some stuff, but what does it mean? How to strategize? What's the relation to 32? What's going on? What have we learned from our assessments and things like that? That'll kind of be our authoritative take on what's going on. That'll be in 2 weeks. That will be on the 24th of September at 12 Central, I believe.
Yep.
There we go. Joseph's thanking the haters for sure. Hey, okay. Well, I know we got this rule. Let's talk about a completely different rule. How about that FAR CUI final rule, folks? So let's talk about this really quick, because I've had a bunch of people being like, what are you going to do now? Now that the rule is done, are you out of a job? Are you going to just hit the ninja smoke bomb and shave your face and just disappear like he was never really real? No, there's still tons of stuff to talk about on the regulatory side. Won't be the only thing that I talk about. Which will be nice. It'll be a nice change of pace. We still have the kickoff of phase 1. We still have phase 2 and phase 3 kickoffs. We still have the FAR CUI rule that's coming out. We still have whatever the heck is going on with the CERC-CIA rule in order to figure out, did DoD and CISA ever come up with an agreement for what they're going to impose for reporting on defense contractors? We still have 853 Rev 6 and the resulting changes to 171 Rev 4. We still have CMMC 3.0 rulemaking when they revise 32 CFR 170 up to 171 Rev 3 and the definition of the ODPs. There's still a million things that we're going to have to talk about. And you just know that even though we've got the final rule, literally I titled my LinkedIn post, The Other Shoe. This is the sound of the other shoe dropping. You're still going to have a wave of denialists out there trying to convince people to hesitate and not take action. And so there's no sleeping around here. There's still plenty of people susceptible to bad influences, bad takes, fake information. and we are out here to try to help them. So there's still plenty to talk about. All righty. Let's see here. Yeah, still waiting for, looking forward for the flat earthers next post. The best take that I heard this morning was, well, it's the Department of War now, and so it's not real because it's not the Department of Defense anymore, which was partially sarcastic, but I could absolutely see that being a real post.
Gosh.
So funny. Yeah, I mean, people say maybe sooner than November 10th because it's not a major rule. I don't think that's going to happen. Based off the information we have today, it's November 10th. Trust me, if it's not November 10th, I mean, that would be pretty crazy of a, pretty crazy rug pull, but I don't think that they're going to change it from the inspection text, which is, it's exactly what James said. I don't think they're going to change it there. So, all right. It's
October 1.
Guys, it's October 1. Oh, that's a good point, though. So the October 1 thing, remember, this class deviation came out, and it threw people for a huge loop. A lot of people were like, hey, CMMC is suspended according to this class deviation, so it's not happening. And then the next day, the rule comes out. The class deviation expires on the effective date of the 48 CFR rule. It was there to tell people that October 1st in the old rule text is not the authoritative date. So I imagine that U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is going to put out their official SAM.gov notice probably today, maybe tomorrow, that says November 10th is the day rather than October 1st. So there you go.
We got to make some merch that says October 1st. I mean, come on, Jacob.
Yeah.
I mean, that's low hanging fruit here.
Yeah, absolutely. October 1st will be CMMC April Fool's Day forever, right? So they think that it's just template language. I don't think so. I really don't think so. If you've looked at public inspection documents before, then I really don't think that's going to change because 60 days is not the default. Right? That like the 60 days is only default for major rules. This hasn't ever been a major rule, so it wouldn't be the default template. Like I said, I don't know. We'll have to find out tomorrow morning. We'll all find out together. I'm pretty sure it's going to be 60 days. So there we go. Let's see here. Blah, 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 blah. Let's see. Anybody else got anything? Thanks for hosting. Yep. Yeah. If you guys have questions, have you guys skimmed through the rule? What do you think? Is there anything that jumps out to you? What's going on? Let's see here.
We got one from Daniel here. That's a question. Difference between A1 and A2 before and after 11.9 and 2028 in terms of what is expected to be done.
204-7504 solicitation provision and clause. Oh yeah, this wording is a little strange. I was reading this as I was walking my dog this morning, and it is worded very strangely. So we'll all step through it together, right? So 204-7504, the solicitation provision and contract clause. So this is instructions to the contracting officer. It says, unless requirements at 32 CFR 170.5D are met. If you remember, the 32 CFR 170.5D is the waiver element of 32 CFR 170. So this is the part that says, under certain circumstances, CMMC requirements can be waived in solicitations. So unless the waiver requirements are met, use the clause at 252-204-7021 as follows. And then we've got two paragraphs. Until November 9th, 2028, which would be the end of the phased rollout, use the clause until November 9th, 2028 in solicitations and contracts, task orders, delivery orders, blah, 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 except for COTS. If the program office or requiring activity determines that the contractor is required to have a specific CMMC level. Okay, so until the end of the phased rollout, use this clause if the program officer requiring activity determines that the contractor is required to have that level. That's pretty straightforward, right? That's exactly what the phased rollout says. Okay, so then it says, use the clause, part 2, on or after November 10th, 2028, the end of the phased rollout, in solicitations and contract orders, blah, 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 except for COTS, if the program officer requiring activity determines that the contractor is required to use contractor information systems in the performance of the contract, task order, delivery order to store, process, or transmit FCI or CUI. So yeah, there's not a huge distinction here. We have to do some thinking on this. What do you guys think about how this is worded? it makes it sound to me like during this phased rollout, this is just like another way of phrasing how the phased rollout works from the contracting officer's perspective. They're saying until 2028, put this clause in the contract if you're told by the program office or the requiring activity that the clause needs to go into this contract. After that, then you put this clause in the contract if the appropriate data is involved, which is still something that they're going to know from the requiring activity and the program managers. So I don't actually see the difference between, let's see, what is this? 204, 7504, A1 and A2. But obviously I haven't had a chance to like really think on it, but this initial description of A1 and A2 doesn't, it just sort of seems a little redundant. Yeah, I mean, during the phased rollout, if the program officer requiring activity determines that the contractor is required to have a specific CMMC level, use the clause 252-204-7021, which will specify a specific level. And as we talked about in the podcast on Thursday, which I recommend that everybody go watch, how will they determine the specific level to use in the contract via the clause 7021? As we know, they have discretion in phase one in those first 12 months to include anything from level 2 self-assessment to level 2 certification. There was a memo put out in January that said you determine based off the data type that's involved. And if the appropriate data type is involved, then the minimum standard is level 2 certification assessment. So go check out that podcast. And if you feel like that's relevant to you, then, then you need to plan accordingly.
Yep. Alrighty. So Dave just posted in here, which reference back to that podcast, Dave, that we're talking about. Academic institutes want to know what's likely to require CMMC L2 certification right out of the gate. So if you read the memo, organizational index, so things in the defense categories what the memo states would require certification. So control technical information, DoD critical infrastructure information, then there's some nuclear information as part of that as well. So that's what the leading theory is on what's going to require certs very, very early on, even potentially as part of phase one. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I haven't had a chance to read through this public comment response, so let's do it together. So academic institutions are always concerned about fundamental research, right? Fundamental research by definition is exempted from these requirements. And that's been a big open question because a lot of the stuff that people do that they think is fundamental research is not. And the DoD has kind of said that fundamental research can be CUI in the future because magic, and they haven't really explained how that's supposed to work. So yeah, the higher education space has its own particular set of problems when it comes to not just CMMC, but talking about the data identity itself and the corresponding requirements. So this is the public comment response section of the preamble to the 48 CFR rule, and group 10 of the public comments are all grouped together under the category of application to fundamental research. They say a respondent stated that expectation to apply CMMC to fundamental research if the fundamental research has the potential to become CUI is unreasonable, and the phrase should be deleted. They're basically summarizing all of the public comments, but that's exactly what we just talked about, is it can magically become CUI. So the government's response, reading the comment part can be somewhat interesting because they're summarizing the public comments, but the part that really matters is everything after response, because that's the DoD talking to the public. So fundamental research as described in NSDD 189, which is a wild read, by the way. Everybody should read this. Fundamental research was a concept that came up in the Cold War because they were worried about Soviet spies and academic institutions. Sound familiar? History rhymes, everybody. Anyways, fundamental research NSDD 189 is published and broadly shared within the scientific community, and as such cannot be safeguarded as either FCI or CUI. That is correct. However, if fundamental research has the potential to become CUI, it would be subject to the requirements of CMMC once the data becomes CUI. Additionally, other research-related information that is provided to or handled by contractors as part of the contract performance may be FCI or CUI, and thus may trigger application of the CMMC requirements. This is hilarious because the public comment said, a respondent stated that the expectation to apply CMMC to fundamental research if the fundamental research has the potential to become CUI is unreasonable and the phrase should be deleted. And their response is, If fundamental research has the potential to become CUI, it would be subject to the requirements of CMMC once it becomes CUI. Be like, did we stutter?
Right. CUI equals CMMC. It ain't crazy.
So they do not explain how fundamental research can become CUI. And as we've talked about many times over the years, that's because the people writing this rule are the Office of the Undersecretary for Acquisition and Sustainment. They are in charge of the text of the clauses and the guidance to the contracting officers implementing DoD policy. They are not the Office of the Undersecretary for Research and Engineering, or OSD-INS, which are in charge of data identity, CUI determinations, all of that kind of stuff. So unfortunately, you're going to get the pointing Spider-Man meme in a lot of these answers, and they're going to say, hey, I know you don't like this answer about fundamental research becoming CUI, but this is a Wendy's. You got to go talk to R&E or INS. And as everyone probably knows, R&E and INS don't get out much. And so we don't know. We don't know. So talk to your customer, try to figure it out. But the answer is not in this rule. All righty,
okay.
Let's see here.
We got another one here. Are CMMC requirements going to be identified in RFPs?
So it'll be in the solicitation. So there is a, let's see if I can find it. I don't have it memorized yet. Sorry, everybody. We're doing it's a live show.
7025, is that the provision of notification?
The provision is 7025. These are all the instructions, blah, 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 blah. Policy, procedures, the solicitation and the clause, how to use them, part 212, part 217, part 252. So part 252 is the text of the solicitation and clauses. So the text of the clause 7021, definitions, which is always standard, current, blah, blah, blah. There should be a box in here that they're going to fill out. They define status. They define unique identifier. Can't go anywhere without the definitions because lawyers, am I right?
Oh, yeah. You're
okay.
Right.
So the requirements of the clause. This is what the clause will say. The contractor shall have and maintain for the duration of the contract a current CMMC status of at the following level or higher blank. The contracting officer will insert CMMC level 1, CMMC level 2 self, CMMC level 2 C3 PAO, CMMC level 3 DIBCAG for all information systems used in performance of the contract, task order, delivery orders that process, store, transmit FCI or CUI. So that's what the clause is going to say. If we scroll down to the provision, which makes you aware of the requirement of the clause, they have their definitions. The CMMC level required by this solicitation is blank. Level 1, level 2 self, level 2 C3PAO, level 3 DIBCAG. It will say right there in the RFP, you need this level. You are aware that the clause 7021 is with it. The clause says you need this level. You need that level by award. Otherwise, you can't take award.
Jacob, now here's some extra context. You did a lot of research investigating GAO and PULT times.
Yeah.
So RFP comes out, solicitation comes out. I've got to be CMMC. What's the average window of time from like I have receipt of solicitation, I want to respond to contract award typically?
Well, the DoD median, according to GAO's most recent report on procurement administrative lead time, which is the time period from solicitation until they award the contract, is like 45 days or something like that. So unless you are going after really big contracts, then your award period is not very long. But this is very dependent on your customer and the type of contracts you're going after. So events like Navy Gold Coast, that's basically all Navy Gold Coast is all of the Navy syscoms get up on stage, NavWar, NavAir, NavSea, NavFac, so on and so forth, and they just put their spreadsheet, which you can find on their websites, for their long-range acquisition forecast. And they say, these are the opportunities that we're going to advertise, and this is our plan for when they're going to go out and when they're going to be awarded. So the most important metric, we've been telling people this for 2 years, the most important metric for you individually on your case-by-case situation is based off your customer and the things you want to go after, how long is your PULT window? Because if you are planning on taking award of something and you're only going to have 45 days from solicitation to award, and you're going to wait until the solicitation to know what level of CMMC you need, you're not going to make it. because nobody's getting ready in 45 days, especially if you haven't implemented the requirements in 7012. So if you're going to have 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 9 days, 9 hours, then you have to know that PALT window and then work backwards. That necessarily means you have to get started before the solicitation even hits the street. And so you got to kind of plan and strategize ahead of time. For 99.9% of contractors out there, your PALT window is not long enough for you, if you were the average situation, to go from 0 to certified in order to take award of the contract.
All right, here's another one for you, Jacob, that I have heard a lot of prior to today. Daniel, CMMC is a phased rollout, meaning all contracts won't have a CMMC requirement in phase 1. So basically, they're just going to sprinkle in a few, a couple dozen contracts in phase 1 with CMMC requirements. They won't all have a requirement level. Can you speak to that?
No, they will all have a requirement level, because if you're at a minimum, everyone's going to have level 1 because it's a contract, which by definition involves contract information. So everyone's going to have a level 1 self-assessment requirement. The question will be will you need a level 2 certification? And if you deal with the DoD categories of CUI, then in that first 12 months, DoD has said we have all the discretion in the world to include that level 2 certification. So we don't know for sure. So you got to talk to your customer, or you got to hedge your bet, or you got to make a bet that it's not going to happen. Once phase 2 happens in November of 2026, if I've done the math correctly, then it will be level 2 certification assessment for anybody dealing with the DoD categories of CUI. There's no discretion for level 2. At that point, it becomes discretion for including level 3 in requirements. So by November of 2026, level 2 certification assessments will no longer have any sort of question mark or asterisk next to them at all. So the phased rollout is not a 3 or 4 years from November 10th until maybe we get a level 2 requirement 4 years from now. You're probably getting that requirement in the first 12 months. You're definitely getting that requirement after November of 2026, because the rest of the phase rollout is for like option years, level 3, and all that other stuff. So you don't really have a three-year, 4-phase rollout. You basically have 1 year, kinda. Is how that's going to work. So,
all right, primes and subs. I'm just going to keep peppering, because one of the things that's been a wake-up call. A lot of the primes have been able to finally write the check to get certified, right? Do the work, build an environment, build an enclave, get through certification. But what I've seen is a very big wake-up call over the past few weeks, and maybe even a couple of months, is, oh, wait a second. CMMC requires a flow down requirement to my subs. What is my responsibility of a prime? Am I gonna be held liable if I send CUI without the flow down of CMMC and holding evidence that my subcontractors are compliant? What are we talking about here in 48 CFR? What does it say to us?
So this is probably the spiciest meatball that I've come across in the rule so far. So this is in the public comment responses, categorized under prime contractor protection from subcontractor noncompliance. This means that people were submitting public comments as primes, being like, what do I do about my subs that are noncompliant? So they said a respondent stated that the rule should clarify that prime contractors will not be rendered ineligible for award if DoD concludes that a subcontractor does not have a timely or sufficient certification status in SPRS, and that the prime should be alerted by the contracting officer regarding their subcontractor's noncompliance. Okay, what does the DoD say about this? It's very straightforward. The government does not establish the relationship between the prime and its subcontractors, nor does it indemnify the prime contractor from its subcontractors. This is because the government does not have privity of contract with the subcontractors. You picked your subcontractors. You sent the data to your subcontractors. Your contract says the requirements flow down accordingly. That's your problem, right? That is not the DoD's problem, because they don't control who you subcontract with. They don't even embellish or explain much beyond that. They're like, you have no indemnification here. We don't have privity of contract. Figure it out is kind of what they have to say here. So yeah, if you're a prime out there and you don't know what to do about your subs, the DoD doesn't have answers for you. So you got to come up with a plan.
We are waiting with bated breath to see the new Lockheed blog that's posted, hopefully in the next few days. I don't know. I'm hoping to, because the prime situation, a lot of people just don't understand that your primes are about to come banging on your door. Like these little questionnaires you've been doing for months and years about your level of CMMC and your timeline. It's about to be a, hey, we need this right now. Because we have to make business decisions because of the PALT timeline, right? If Lockheed gets awarded a contract with these requirements, they have to immediately be able to turn around and assess who in their supply chain they can send this information to. There's no more nice surveys. We're kind of getting rid of that to some extent.
Yeah. And there's 29 different sections summarizing public comments and responses. And I don't see in the public comment summaries where prime contractors were submitting public comments about ideas for helping their subs. It looks like the public comments that were submitted by the primes were, how do we protect ourselves from you? Not how do we work with the DoD to help you? And that should maybe tell you everything that you need to know about how they're going to circle the wagons, if you will, which we've told people before. If you haven't got a phone call from your prime contractor saying, don't worry, bro, we got you, you should start planning accordingly and immediately, because
there's a critical supply chain element. Lockheed knows who's critical to them. And if they haven't reached out to you, you're probably not that critical.
I don't know if I've shared this on the Q&A. I think I've talked about this. I've talked about this with people individually. I don't know if I've shared this publicly before. So I haven't been invited back to a certain industry event to moderate a panel in a couple years, because a couple years ago, I moderated a 4-person panel. There were 2 small business contractors in the DIB, and there were 2 people from large prime contractors on the panel. And I was like, this is going to be great, because we're going to have 2 completely different perspectives on these requirements. And this will be an awesome family meeting, right? We're all going to hug it out in terms of what's going on. I reached out to the panelists individually before the panel saying, like, what do we want to talk about? This is what I'm thinking, blah, blah, blah. And the people from the primes were telling me, we've reached out to our critical suppliers and we have taken care of them, right? Money, resources, environments, enclaves, assistance, whatever was necessary. I've heard this from multiple primes over the years. And my first question to them was, okay, well, what about everybody else? And they were like, what about everybody else? Like, well, what about the suppliers that aren't critical? And they're like, they're not critical. Like, we helped the critical suppliers. Like, this isn't a charity. And this is why I always say that the primes are not responsible for national industrial policy, and just sort of outsourcing industrial policy to mega corporations is not a good policy, because they're going to keep the suppliers that they need. They're not going to keep redundant hundreds or thousands of suppliers that all do the same thing if they don't have to. That's just how the economics work. However, they won't say that on stage. I've asked them before. I'm like, will you say that on stage? Will you tell people, hey, if you haven't heard from us, you're not going to hear from us. And so you need to, plan accordingly to help save yourself. And they're like, absolutely not. Our lawyers would never let us say that on stage. And it's been that same story for years. And it's always pissed me off, because they will tell this to you on an individual basis. They will not say it on stage. They haven't said it on stage when it was an industry event. They won't say it on stage when it's a CS2 event. Never been able to get them to say it publicly, but they've been saying it all along. And here you go, public comments. How do we protect ourselves from our subs? Not how do we help all the subs? There you go.
Can I just say, Department of Justice is going to have a lot of fun with just all sorts of false claims, things of misrepresentation of compliance of subs and themselves, quite honestly. The Department of Justice, if you're watching, get ready to hire a bunch of lawyers, because they're going to come out in the droves. So
yeah, I mean, I'm surprised, actually. Department of Justice, if you're watching, you guys should be the ones that are petitioning for false starts to be a tracked metric, because everybody who false starts on an assessment is the one who's obviously not ready. So, pro tip, if you guys want an easy indicator, then track false starts. Anyways, let's see. So imagine a few small DIB contractors bidding on the same contract, and none of them are ready for CMMC Level 2 certification. Is that contract going to be canceled due to no suitable contractor that meets CMMC Level 2? So the determination about whether there will be enough contractors to bid on the contract is made pre-solicitation. If in the pre-solicitation process, they've determined that there won't be enough people with the appropriate CMMC status, that's when they issue the waiver in accordance with 32 CFR 170 policy. this is why it's important for people to not bank on getting waivers for CMMC status, because it's a pre-solicitation decision. So by the time you see the solicitation and it says you need this CMMC level, they've determined that there will be enough companies that they meet the minimum number of bids in order to award the contract. So if you're not getting the CMMC cert because you think there's going to be a waiver, and then you see a solicitation come out that says there will be this CMMC cert, that means that they have determined there are enough companies besides you that they can get enough bids to award this work to people who are not you. And so they explain the waiver process. I think it's 170.5 is the waiver section in 32 CFR. So yeah, that's a pre-solicitation decision.
Contracting officers are stoked about CMMC because they don't want to review a bunch of proposals. I mean, if there's only 3 that they receive with CMMC requirements, great, less reading for them, right? And another thing, just to make things clear, CMMC trumps set aside requirements. So just hear us, like small business, disabled, minority, woman-owned, Alaska Native, like fill in the blank, 8A, like that's great. And it can aid in your selection on top of CMMC, but CMMC trumps all of that. And waivers are, and Jacob, you said this, and I love this, waivers will be for contracts, not for companies. So when there's a waiver going to be issued, it will not be issued to a specific company. It will be issued at a contract level. So you can't just get a one company exemption in your supply chain because Joe's machine shop decided not to do this. So just be aware of that too.
Yeah, waivers are for contracts, not contractors. And so that's maybe the most concise way to think about it. And they're pre-solicitation. So you as an individual are not getting a waiver. And if you see the requirement in the solicitation, it's too late. Okay, somebody asked, what is a false start? So we've done a couple podcasts on this, and we've talked about this in the past. So the CMMC assessment process is a 4-phase process. In phase 1, essentially what happens is the C3PA is going to determine your feasibility for success in the assessment. You essentially have to pass the sniff test to see, are you capable of going through an assessment at all? They're not determining whether you will pass. They're just saying, like, are you even prepared to go through an assessment? If you are determined to not be prepared for the assessment, then the assessment is either rescheduled or canceled. So we said that this should be tracked. We coined the term false start, essentially, is that the assessment never got off the ground, essentially, right? Like, you didn't fail your assessment. You didn't go all the way through the assessment process and then get an insufficient score and then fail. You just never got assessed. And so a lot of companies, as we know from reporting other than ours, right? The MXD report, the DoD IG reports, throw a dart at the industry reports over the years, and the same conclusion happens in all of them. Defense contractors dramatically overestimate their readiness for assessment, and they dramatically overestimate the degree to which they have fully implemented their cybersecurity requirements. So companies would say, yeah, we got a 110 in SPRS, we're good. We got a 100 in SPRS, we're good. And then they schedule their CMMC assessment and then they false start, right? Which means they're not good. So Lee, I don't know if you work for the Department of Justice and that's what you're asking about, but I wish that this were a metric that the DoD or the Cyber AB would track, because it's probably the only metric that would give us a single number, a single percentage that is useful for both industry and the government to say 25%, let's say 25% of companies that start the CMMC assessment process can't even qualify to begin the assessment because they have overestimated their readiness. That does not mean that it's so hard that people can't pass, because as we've seen with the 270 some odd certifications so far, I mean, we've got coming up on 50 clients that have their level 2 assessment. The thing that this does is the number of failures will be very small, is what we talk about in these podcasts, because the people who are more likely to pass are going to qualify for the assessment. The people who are more likely to fail won't qualify for the assessment. And so you're always going to have a very small number of failures. So when people look at the success of the program and everybody's saying it's too hard, then be like, what are you talking about? Like, you know, single digit percentages of companies fail the assessment. What do you mean it's too hard? So I think it would be a useful metric to track, but check out those podcast episodes.
All right, I've got another one here from Anthony. Got a friend who runs a job shop, places staff in government seats in DoD and DOS, but does not do technical work. He's convinced he doesn't need to worry about CMMC because he doesn't do technical stuff. Jacob, how wrong is he?
Well, if you're on a contract, you have to at least do level 1. I don't know the nature of the data that is involved. Obviously, if you handle any type of controlled unclassified information, level 2 is what we're talking about. If you handle a specific type of the defense categories of CUI, then you need an external assessment of CMMC level 2. So just because you don't do technical work does not necessarily absolve you from the requirements at level 1 or level 2. The only real line here is CUI or not, defense CUI or not. And that's really kind of it. Actually, I know I said I'm going to make a flow chart. Nobody steal that idea for a flow chart.
Yeah, that's for Jacob, everybody. Because that's the interesting thing. And we go back to it. After November 10th, all solicitations will have some sort of stated CMMC level, 1 or 2 for the first phase 1. I don't know phase 3. Is that also, I don't think that's even at discretion as part of phase 1. I think it's just 1 and 2.
No, so, yeah. Phase 1 is level 1 all the way.
Yeah. So just be aware, CMMC post November 10th, there will be some sort of CMMC requirement. What that is, to Jacob's point, is it's either basically probably tied to the type of CUI they're working with, if it's certification or self-attest, but at a minimum, everybody will have level 1. Oren, I think, posted in chat a little while ago, CMMC level 1, the actual requirements of FAR 52-204-21 back in the day, like that cyber hygiene has been a basic requirement for, I'm going to make up a number, like a decade. So that's not a new thing. You should have been doing that all along for all federal contracts.
Yeah, and this is very similar to the percentage breakdowns that they've had. Some of the numbers are different based off of their estimate, but essentially people are like, it's going to be self-assessment in phase 1. As we've talked about, that's not a guarantee. And you're also thinking, oh, they're only going to do self-assessments in phase 1, irregardless of the type of data that's being handled, when they've told us many, many times they think that only 2% of contractors out there are going to get level 2 self-assessment. Of the people who get level 2 certifications, it's way, way, way more. You're talking about 80,000 at a minimum, honestly, because the DoD doesn't have a lot of visibility into the data flow of their supply chain. So if you think you're in the level 2 group, you're a very small percentage. If you think you're in level 2, if you think you're in the level 2 self-assessment group, you're in a very small percentage. And if you think that only those in that 2% group are going to be the ones with contract solicitations in phase 1, it's just not true. It's just not true. All right, let's see here.
Do not, okay, while you're looking that up, a couple other pieces of content. The DoD will set it for the prime on what the CMMC level is. The prime, so let's say the DoD set the self-assessment level. Because contracts with the prime and the sub are private contracts, this is why the DoD, it says they don't have the ability to see downstream. Privity, I think, is the word. The prime can set whatever requirements they want on that private contract. But at a minimum, they have to set them to the requirements that the prime sets, at a minimum. So Lockheed could tell you right now they want you certified in 3 months, but in reality, they might not have a contract for you to perform on for another 10 months, right? Because again, private contracts. So just be aware, what the DoD dictates might not always be the same as what the prime dictates. The DoD would be the minimum requirement. The primes can set well above that if they desire. Again, to validate, they have a compliant supply chain. So when they win work, they know who they can send it to.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see if anybody needs to make a summary for your leadership at work, or if there are any of our competitors in the chat who need an outline for your webinar, you can go to page 52 of the PDF under the expected impact of the rule, and they have a nice little bulletized summary here. DoD is amending the DFARS to include the following solicitation and contract requirements related to the CMMC policy at 32 CFR 170. Offerer and contract requirement to post the results of a level 1 or level 2 self-assessment to SPRS prior to award, exercise of an option, or extension of a period of performance if it's not already in there. Level 2 certification and level 3 doesn't need to be posted by you and SPRS because those show up in EMAS as a result of either a C3 PAO assessment or a DIBCAC assessment. Also, they're modifying the DFARS for the contractor requirement to maintain the required CMMC status for the life of the contract. There's a contractor requirement for an affirming official defined at 32 CFR 170.4. This is why the 32 CFR rule has to come out before the 48 CFR rule, because the 48 CFR rule is pointing back to CMMC policy codified at 32 CFR 170. So 170.4 is probably going to define what an affirming official is. I can't remember off the top of my head. So the requirement for an affirming official to complete an affirmation of continuous compliance with the security requirements in SPRS for each CMMC UID applicable to each of the contractor information systems that will handle the CUI, or when compliance status changes. Offerer and contract requirement to identify the contractor information systems that will be used to process, store, transmit FCI or CUI in performance of the contract prior to award, by providing to the government the CMMC UIDs generated by SPRS, the actual identifier of the information system that you're talking about. So not only do we have a specific identifier for the scope of the system that we're talking about, you also remember have an artifact retention requirement of 6 years. That's at level 1, level 2 self, level 2 C3PAO. So you told the government this system right here with this serial number and these artifacts that we use to determine our status is what we were testing to you, which is hopefully all correct and accurate, because you're giving them all the evidence for you. You're not just saying, yeah, we did it, right? You're saying these systems under this serial number with this hashed evidence that has not changed since we made that decision. Here you go, right? So there you go. That's a pretty good summary, I would say, of the general very high level requirements. So if you need a quick summary, or if you guys need to hustle marketers at other companies, if you need to send out an email because your boss is yelling at you, maybe just go with that. And that might get you 90% of the way.
Jacob, I'm going to bring this up just to make everyone hyper aware. If you have not started your CMMC journey, and this is, I'm going to make this try to be as not a sales pitch, but I just need you guys to hear me. Whether you've started the technical implementation or waiting for an assessor, or you haven't even started the technical implementation, the backlog of competent implementers and assessors is going to fill up incredibly fast over the next few days and potentially next 2 or 3 weeks. So if you do have this CMMC project on a shelf, because maybe your executive said suspend it until it's real, tell them not to wait until November 10th, because there will be nobody to help you or your organization. So again, I don't want to, I hate fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I hate the FUD, but the reality is, like, it's going to take a backlog of months and months to get an assessor and implementers to support you in your journey. So you need to start yesterday, reaching back out, re-engaging with whoever you're talking to, and try and get dates on books.
Yeah. Anyway. What's the opposite of fear, uncertainty, and doubt?
Certainty,
assurance, certainty, and certainty. Like,
yeah, something like that. That sounds good.
Help us out, chat. Like, what's the opposite of FUD? Like, everybody accused us of FUD, and we would always say it's only FUD if it's not true. Well, the rule is published. You can go look at it with your own eyes. You can print it and have a hard copy of it. So it ain't FUD anymore. Like, we have a date that it goes live on November 10th. So it's as certain as it can get. Now, you might still be afraid of that, but we're not peddling fear. Like, it's right there in black and white. So let's see here.
Courage. Courage is the opposite of fear. Thank you, Matt.
Courage. Anyways. Okay, yeah. We're spitballing here. We'll workshop it. FUD does have a nice, like, concise ring to it. So we need something to offset that. The opposite of FUD. Let's see here. Somebody asked, when will we see the Orion asked, when will we see the FAR CUI rule? First of all, we don't know, right? There's no real way to know. I don't have an analysis of average rules from the FAR Council. And as you've probably seen, as we've chronicled over the years, FAR CUI rule has been the white whale of the federal CMMC program. However, let's see if I can pull this up here. The most recent unified agenda was published on the OMB website, and these are obviously projections for when agencies expect their rules to be done in the upcoming 12 months. And if we go to the FAR Council's rules for 2017-016, the FAR CUI rule, their most recent update is they expect it in December.
Okay. For
December.
people that are unaware of what this is, this basically takes the same framework of CMMC, the control sets, the FedRAMP cloud pieces, those elements, and applies it not just to DoD, applies it to all federal agencies, contractors dealing with controlled and classified information. So you think CMMC is a big deal? FAR CUI is going to explode that to all federal agencies as a requirement. And then each agency gets to determine whether they're going to require certification or not. That discretion is on a per agency basis. So just be aware, the DoD is the largest supply chain holder in the United States government probably at this point. And if they're requiring certification, it's probably not going to be very hard for the Department of Homeland Security to require certification. So chances are agencies will probably lean that way because a lot of their supply chain will already be certified because of work with the DoD. So FAR CUI, like you think CMMC is a big deal? FAR CUI is about to explode this to a whole nother level, probably from 80 to 300,000, probably to close to 800,000 to 1 million, just very large size. And so,
technically the FAR CUI rule, if you've been watching our podcast, we've got some awesome podcasts on the history of the FAR CUI rule. That was supposed to come out in 2016 when 171 came out and when the overall federal CUI regulation 32 CFR 2002 came out. It didn't, for a lot of reasons, a lot of unexplained reasons. And so the DoD kind of had to forge ahead in front of all the other agencies and do their own thing by revising DFAR 7012. And ironically, over the years, DoD now leads the way for determining how to interpret requirements, how to assess requirements, how to require them in contracts. And so the proposed FAR CUI rule that came out last year was talking about how they were modeling it off of DFAR 7012, which originally, if you go far enough back, if the OGs are here and they remember, was the opposite of what was supposed to happen. DFAR 7012 was supposed to model itself after the FAR CUI rule, not the other way around. But, it's a wacky and wild world that we live in. Let's see. Somebody said Katie. Somebody checked Katie's post. Somebody said Katie said October 10th, not November 10th.
So I looked this up. I couldn't find that post unless it was a comment somewhere. Let me pull it up. Let me try and pull it up again.
The official Department of War press release does not say what the effect is.
She is a beautiful bill, isn't she? That's Katie's post. And I don't see any comment or commentary on anything but that. So
let's see here. So October 10th would be a Friday. October 10th would be the effective date if the rule were published on September 19th. These are actually like official. Okay, hold on. Let's see. So if it's published tomorrow, 30 days after publication would be October 10th. Yeah. So I don't know. I haven't seen that from Katie.
I haven't either. If you have that post or that comment, if you can drop a link in chat, that'd be great.
Let's all find out tomorrow morning together. I really think it's going to be shorter than 60 days, but man, it would be pretty crazy if it were. But as of right now, we're going with what's on the public inspection document because that's why it's there as public inspection, is for us to all see it before it gets published. So as of right now, we're going with 60 days. Let's see here. Any comments on the number of unique entities that will be affected? 300,000 seems like it would include a lot more OSCs than the last estimate, 80,000. 300,000 is the total number of contractors that they estimate to be in the DIB, not the total number of CUI holders, right? So the total number of contractors who have FCI who need to self-assess against CMMC level 1 is in the hundreds of thousands. DoD estimates that the subset of companies that sorry, the DMs are wild today. Sorry, everybody. The subset of companies in that 300,000 that have controlled and classified information, that is the defense subcategory of controlled and classified information, who will need to have a level 2 third-party assessment, is estimated to be around 80,000. Now, obviously, we have to take those numbers with a grain of salt because the DoD doesn't actually know where the data is flowing because they can't know. They're actually not allowed to ask. But yeah, 300,000 companies for level 1, 80,000-ish for level 2 certification assessment. This was the problem with the original conception of CMMC 1.0 in 2020 was they said level 1 needs an external assessment. So you were going to have 300,000 external assessments, which, you know, is crazy. 80,000 external assessments is a lot, but it's a lot easier to do, right? You can actually hit that number. Hitting 300,000 would be pretty difficult. So it took a while to get there, but at least they did correct it.
All right, Jacob, do we want to do some of the things, the confidence, certainty, and assured? We got a few here before we wrap up.
Yeah, sure. Here. Let's see here. Confidence, competent, and knowledge, CCK. We need a vowel, right? You need a vowel. Yeah. I like confidence, competent, and knowledge, but FUD works because it's got a vowel in it, right? So
Lori's got best, though. I like that. Bravery, enlightenment, sureness, and truth.
Best. Okay. Okay. All right. Duff, deliberate, understood, foundational.
I do actually love that too.
That's pretty fun. That's pretty fun. Somebody just wrote Dale Earnhardt, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, praise Dale. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. We'll keep workshopping it. We'll keep seeing what's going on. Man, it's already been an hour, which is pretty crazy to me. Time flies. So obviously, thanks everybody for tuning in on the emergency session for the Q&A. We're going to be back on Friday doing more questions. I'm sure there will be a million questions. There's always stuff in the rule where you're like, what does that mean? And what is this? We come up with it too. So we'll be back on Friday. We'll have the regular Sum It Up podcast on Thursday. We have our webinar in 2 weeks. It's free. That's where we'll have everything buttoned up nice and pretty for you. So the Lockheeds and the Raytheons can use the slides. You guys can use the slides when you're talking to company leadership. Everybody can use the slides. And that will be on September 24th. So you can register at this link. That same week we'll be in Huntsville at Summit 7 Live. So if you want to come hang out and chat in person at a relatively small venue, then we'd love to see you. We'll also be at National Cyber Summit in Huntsville, walking around. Yeah, if anybody wants to catch a round of golf after work, let me know. There's some amazing courses out in the hills out there, and we can figure it out. Let's see. Daniel, what did we miss? Today's an amazing day. How long have we been waiting on this? What's the official?
5 years, 40, you know, I don't know if it's 40 something or 30 something months. Yeah, it's a lot. So
let's see. Since the rule was officially announced in the Federal Register, I think is what I counted from. So let's see. 3 years, 9 months, 24 days. That's a long time to amortize the cost of implementation, to get ready for assessment. Some people feel like they've been holding the bag because they invested the money and the assessment requirement didn't get here soon enough. But I'm sure all those people are going to feel right as rain here pretty soon because the rush is definitely going to be pretty crazy.
Yes.
All right, everybody. We got a lot of reading to do. We got a lot of slides to make. We got a lot of comments on LinkedIn to respond to. We'll be back for the CUI hotline on Friday. You go to CUIHotline.org. You call the number. You can leave a question on the forum. You can DM us questions. If you find this video afterwards, you can leave a comment or a question on LinkedIn. You can leave it on YouTube. Check out our blog. Register for the webinar. And happy Rule Day, everybody.
Happy Rule Day.
We'll see you in a couple days on Friday.
See y'all.